Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining this live stream today. You know what? It was too big to rig, wasn't it? Too big to rig. I mean, look, a couple years ago for Halloween, my kids dressed up as Donald Trump. And last night, he did it again. He did it again. Elected twice, they say, behind all odds. But the man did it. You know what? And it was a little bit touch and go because yesterday I wanted to do a story about elections and about American election coverage because sometimes we think we know things, but we don't know everything and what states matter and which ones are the swing states and what have you. So I was doing my research yesterday, and then I hear that in Georgia, bomb threat by the Russians at 2 polling stations, and that they had problems with voting machines in Pennsylvania. Well, those are very crucial states to call an election. And I'm thinking, here we go. Here we go again. We're going to have to wait forever. They're not going to call it. Look at what just happened to us in BC with what happened to John Rustad and the ridiculous shenanigans going around that election. And I just thought, this is going to happen. This is going to happen again because there's a big machine behind Kamala Harris, big funds, big money. Netflix alone gave her, I think it was $7 million. She gets access to all the campaign money that Biden has. There's a big machine installing that woman. And you kind of think, I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to have a hanging Chad situation? But no, he prevailed. He prevailed. So there you go. The 47th US president. So let's see what he does. Let's see what JD Vance does. But I have a very special guest. I'm very excited to talk to my good friend, fellow colleague, ex-chorus broadcaster like myself. But let's bring him in right now, Mr. Shadoe Davis. Shadoe Davis.
Oh, my beautiful friend. How are you doing, Anita?
I was sweating a little bit because I don't go live. And you were watching me. I mean, Shadoe is backstage like humming, and I'm like, I can't get my microphone working. But I did it. I did it.
You look great. You sound great. Everything's cool. Yeah, I do this every night. So it's not a big deal for me. But I'm happy to see that you.
I'm always like, did I click the right buttons or whatever I did? Shadoe. So here we are. We're two Canadian broadcasters. You've been in when you worked for Chorus, you worked for CJ. What did you work for again?
It was CJOB in Winnipeg. I was the morning show host of that radio station for a couple of years.
So here we are in the Canadian media landscape. The Canadian media has forever let the public down with the you-know-what coverage, right? Betrayed the trust of Canadians. And they continue to betray the trust, the way they've covered everything, and particularly the way they've covered Trump. So, and the way they cover our local elections. We have John Rustad here. They crap all over him and lick the boot of David Eby. And
let me ask you,
he prevails.
I wanted to have you on my show at one point soon to talk about this BC election, which, by the way, is still not decided. It's going through judicial recounts right now, at least in 2 ridings, right? Because the vote count was so close, like under 100. And then they found 800 ballots that went uncounted the other day from pretty much a PC stronghold riding. So it's not going to have any effect.
Yeah, so it didn't make Prince George Mackenzie. So it's not going to maybe make a difference, but it might make a difference in the Surrey-Guildford riding where they had a difference of 27, but now I don't know what the number is now. So yeah, they have some explaining to do. And like I think we were texting before, why do we not just do pencil and paper?
Yeah. I mean, I never heard of any problems. I mentioned this on the show last night. I never heard of any problems in elections before. We were using pencil and paper, making an X on the page, right? But then again, that could be because we didn't know that people were rigging things. It never would have occurred to us that any sort of election fraud was going on before all of this nonsense. But look at what happened in Florida last night. I mean, Florida closed their polls. I think it was 7 o'clock Eastern time. Or 8 o'clock Eastern time. And pretty much all of their results came in within an hour. Florida was called within an hour of their polls closing. That's a massive state. They have 40 electoral votes in Florida. And in the meantime, Nevada can't seem to get their act together. Arizona can't get their act together. Michigan can't get their act.
I expected
Pennsylvania.
Nevada today. Like I expected Nevada and Arizona. I always thought that's like, because some states take longer than others, but it's a very good example. Like Florida can get you the count in a couple of hours. Look at us in BC. We had our election October 19th. It's friggin' November 6th, and they still can't figure it out. Maybe they don't want to figure it out.
Well,
Maybe there's something tying their hands. But tonight, okay, so last night we're here to talk about Trump. So Trump, I did not think we would see that result last night that we did so quickly. I thought they'd just string this out like a Bush Gore thing, like like
I mean,
2016
Chad.
drama, the hanging
Yeah.
Chad. I did a video about that too because it's been a long time and I actually didn't know what a Chad was. But then a Chad is the piece of paper that you punch holes in and they put it in the machine. And when the holes come up, they call them hanging. And then you can it was punching holes and mucking up all the votes. So I did a story on that. But last night, Donald Trump, I didn't think we'd see this last night. That really surprised me that it was conclusive. So let's have a look at a little bit. I mean, he earned it. He earned it. So here it is.
Thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
So can I ask you this? Like maybe we don't have the answer to this question, but my partner never believes in anything, right? And he's very skeptical of everything. And I'm happy that Donald Trump won because of everything I've heard him say. I believe him. I believe that he cares. But do you have any question in your mind about why someone is so rich and older he could just retire, sit on a beach? Do you think why is he doing this?
It's because he loves his country. I mean, we could get into some deeper stuff here. I mean, I've heard some things from people. If I'm to look at it just at face value, it seems to me that Donald Trump is an American traditionalist and that he loves his country and he wants to see it go back to normalcy and common sense. And that's why he keeps using that phrase over and over again. The one that the Marxists, as far as I'm concerned, have tried to paint as a far right extreme dog whistle, which is common sense. It's a phrase that we've been using for years. I grew up with this phrase. My dad said, use some common sense, for God's sakes, kid. Look both ways before you cross the street. That kind of thing. And that's all we're talking about here. Somebody said to me the other day, I think it was on, maybe it was, it's tough to remember, Anita, these days, if somebody actually says something to you, like as a person, or if you read it on X in a comment, it's gotten to that point in our society. But somebody said, I remember when conservatives were progressive. And I said, we are progressive. We're just not stupid, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we want to move society forward as well, but we want to make sure we've got all our T's crossed and all of our I's dotted before we do so. We want to make sure that people aren't going to be harmed in the process as we move ahead. And we want to make sure that it's a good idea. And so that's why you ask around. You feel it's got to be a good idea. Like, are you telling me that men can be women and women can be men, and that women should be, playing with men in sports? No, of course not. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you say that,
is it a good idea? Exactly. To take hormone blockers? Is it a good idea to maybe remove body parts when you're 15 or, sometimes they do it at 13 or 12. And is this a good idea? We would say no. This is not a good idea. Is it a good idea to maybe get a neck tattoo when you're 14? Probably not. Is it a good idea to smoke crack and start smoking cigarettes at 15, 16? No. So that's what we say. If you want to be gay, be gay. Nobody cares about that, but that's where they go too far. And it is amazing that lifelong Democrats like RFK, they're now going to be working with Trump and make America healthy again. For that, I think RFK is very smart. I think people don't give him enough credit for how resilient he is and how much he's put up with. You know, even his own family spoke badly about him.
I mean, never mind the vaccine stuff. I mean, we know his position on that. It's just about general health, and it's about how big pharma and big food really has taken over the United States of America, and by association, pretty much the entire Western democratic world.
But getting back to Trump, he's got RFK on his side. Obviously, Tulsi Gabbard went on his side. Vivek Ramaswamy, who I think is sharp as a tack. I think he's a really smart guy. And JD Vance. Very, very smart. I like that team. Okay.
You forgot Elon Musk. Don't forget
Elon Musk. Rogan is on his side. The Dana White is on his side. I mean, and who does Kamala have on her side? She had celebrities crying. Like she had Mark Hamill, Sarah Jessica Parker, the Swifties, Schwarzenegger sitting down with John Podesta advocating voting Kamala Harris. And you think these Hollywood types like Ben Stiller and all them, I mean, maybe they have a fan base, but nowadays people laugh in the face of them. They're a joke. They couldn't even do it for her. Friggin' Oprah and the Obamas. What did you think of that? Like that endorsement wasn't enough to tip the scale for her. What do you think of that?
I think that when you've got somebody like Jennifer Lopez, who used to date Diddy, coming out and asking you to trust her judgment, then you've got an issue. Look, I think people are fed up with hollow celebrity endorsements. And we've seen so many of those because when you ask them why they're supporting her, there's never really a clear answer. They never could name any of her policies. I mean, she couldn't name any of her policies.
No,
it's just that we're never going back, right?
She didn't know. So that brings us to the Canadian media, how we thought the Canadian media cover things. And I'm glad you brought up her policy, because the one big policy that I could only that was more prevalent than anything was a woman's right to choose. Of course, you can't choose what medical intervention you take, but you can certainly choose whether you take the, you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's now it's a choice. It's your body, your choice. It's actually not your body when it comes to abortion. There's other factors. What about the dad? Does a dad have no rights? The reason I say that is I could tell another story, but whatever. But I don't know.
You don't want to go there?
I don't know. Somebody I know close in our family was going to have a baby, and she was older. It was time to have the baby, but she's like, no, I don't want to have this baby now. I'm going to go back to school. We're like, you're friggin' almost 40. Have the baby. You're married and the husband wanted the baby. And I don't even want to get into it, but like he has no rights. So he has no rights? I thought that was ridiculous. And so she could choose to end the pregnancy. What about his feelings? What about the life that's inside you? Anyway, I go on. But this IVF, vasectomy, abortion, Kamala Harris got a lot of support for that. So I'm going to just I'm going to play this clip. This is from Global National. All these people I know and I work with, so it's hilarious to me. But let's just watch a little bit of students from this is Howard University. This is Kamala Harris's alma mater.
Kamala Harris in these last few days has not mentioned her opponent Donald Trump by name. She is painting a very different picture between her agenda of focusing on the American people and his, which she says would be focused on a list of enemies. We heard from some students here at Howard University earlier today on why they support Kamala Harris. Take a listen.
There was a lot of racism was very rampant, very open. People don't really care about what they had to say, especially in the South. So I would say I'm not really ready to go back to that.
The situation in Gaza, I think she definitely could have handled better, but I do believe she is still the best candidate.
I voted for her specifically because I think that she represents huge change that's happening in America. She cares about people who look like me. She has policies in place for people who look like me.
I'm voting for her, and my specific reasoning was really for reproductive rights. So that's really important to me, especially from being from Kentucky. We don't have reproductive rights. That was all taken.
You might be able to hear the crowd cheering behind me as Howard University's president makes some remarks. A lot we don't know, but one thing is for sure, the excitement here is palpable. Donna?
You know what? Sorry, two things. There's no excitement there. There's nobody in the background. She should have stood behind where the crowd is. She's like, you can hear people cheering. No, we can't hear shit, Neetu. But anyway, also, and so what did you make of that? The people saying women's rights, women's rights. Oh, sorry.
Well,
And one other thing. Kamala
mm,
Harris didn't even come out and speak to the people that gathered for her at Howard University. She
no,
sent
no.
someone else out.
Well,
What do you think of all
her
that?
campaign co-chair came out and said she'll not be speaking tonight because there's a lot of votes left to count. And the left-wing corporate media did not call the election last night. Most of them, Fox News, I think, did around 2:00 in the morning, and then Trump came out and gave his acceptance speech. And Kamala, like I said, did not speak last night. Like you said, I'm sorry. And she finally called Trump a couple of hours ago and conceded the election.
Oh, good for
But
her. But that was
yeah,
awful to not come out. And in that clip, there's a girl there going, she cares about people that look like me. No, she doesn't.
no, Kamala Harris
If she
was a
cared about you,
construct.
she would have come out and said, thank
Yeah,
you for your support. Go ahead. Sorry.
she was a construct of the Democratic Party, of whoever is running the show there, whether it's Nancy Pelosi combined with the Obamas and the Clintons. I don't know exactly who's behind that machine, but Kamala Harris is not who they made her out to be. And of course, we saw that over the last 3 or 4 months in the campaigning, where she could not answer a
No,
question without script. She was not genuine. She did not connect with the people in the way that Donald Trump did.
she didn't
Getting back,
understand.
getting back
She
to
couldn't have the concept of what she was talking about. She doesn't
no,
understand policy. She couldn't come up with an answer and talk off the top of her head because A, she had to stop and think, what am I supposed to say here? And B, she doesn't know. She doesn't know how to fix the problems. She doesn't
and how
know
can
anything
that
about
be? How
foreign
can that
policy.
be? I mean, somebody who has been in a position of political responsibility now for what, 8, 10 years? I mean, she was the
Mhm.
Attorney General of California for a time. She was a senator. She apparently the furthest left-leaning senator, even senator in history, even further left than Bernie Sanders. Then she becomes the vice president. So you would think that over all of that time in politics, she would have learned how to be able to think on her feet
Yeah,
and just basically recite policy, not talking points, but policy. And she
policy.
was unable to
Exactly.
do that.
No,
Um,
she's the great example of, I guess, falling upwards or whatever. You couldn't possibly, you fall upwards, or what is it? You fail upwards, or whatever it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
DEI. I mean, we're looking at somebody who was chosen for this role in the last
Mhm.
few months. And when Biden, when we all discovered the guy we knew long before the left-wing corporate media was willing to announce it, that he had some kind of mental difficulties. And that was obvious going back
Yeah.
probably to the beginning of his presidency, right? But they covered that up, or tried to cover it up, for as long as they possibly could. And during that debate with Trump, it became clearly obvious to the country that he couldn't run
Yeah.
in any kind of
So
election.
that's why
So
they put her in, because how can you get rid of a woman of color and a woman? I mean, you can't. Remember, they were saying, "Go shove in Gavin Newsom, put all these other people in there," but they had to go with her, and come hell or high water, they were going to make it work. So that's a little clip of people from Howard University. I also want to show a little bit of my old stomping grounds, a little bit of what Donna Friesen had to say, who, I don't know, out of touch.
And I think the pre-election polling kind of, painted that picture. A picture of a population that was in angst, that was suffering, was having problems making ends meet, and a population that really believes the system is broken.
Well, and is part of that also because that has been Donald Trump's campaign message for 471 days, right? That this country is broken, that it's never been this bad before, that inflation is through the roof, that crime is up. A lot of things that, frankly, aren't true. Inflation has come down. Crime is not the worst it's ever been. A lot of things he said that simply aren't true, but people have taken them as gospel.
But people really are suffering. People really are having problems making ends meet. The cost of living is high, and there's certain segments, like less affluent Americans, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and younger Americans, that really are still having problems making their household finances work.
Is she clueless?
Anita, let me ask you a
clueless?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not
Donna
clueless.
just said the crime is not up and inflation is not up. And
Right.
when you're sitting in your ivory tower, and I know Donna, I know
Yeah.
her.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me ask you, how much money does Donna Friesen make? She's the national anchor for Global, right?
Yeah.
So how
Global
much do you
national
think that,
anchor.
yeah,
Chief anchor.
like what is she, like 750 grand?
I think so. Something like that.
Okay. So if she's making
I don't know though
750,
for sure. Yeah.
no, I know, but like this is a
Yeah.
guess, and I'm thinking that I know Toronto radio morning show hosts who are making that, right?
I
Um,
know. I couldn't believe it. Even at CKNW, Philip Till and John McComb, they were making a lot of money while the producers, they'd hire them out of TV school,
yeah.
BCIT or radio school, and pay them. You could work at Subway and make sandwiches and make more.
Well, you probably had to actually do both at the same time in order to afford a one-bedroom apartment or a studio apartment in Vancouver. But let's say that
Okay.
Donna makes 750,000 or maybe even $1 million a year. Let's just throw that out there. Somebody making that kind of money would not be able to understand the crunch that regular Americans and Canadians are
Mm-hmm.
feeling right now at the grocery store, on the street. She never ever has to go on a bus. She probably sent people out and get groceries for her.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out to the grocery store and you see that you have to spend $7 on a dozen eggs, or a package of spinach is going to cost you $8, or a jar of peanut butter is going to cost you $9, you know that there is something wrong. When you see tent cities in every major metropolitan city in this country, when you
Mm-hmm.
see the problem that's going on in downtown Vancouver right now, that Hastings area,
Mm-hmm.
that area has expanded
Mm-hmm.
in
It's
the
got
last
worse.
few years.
Mm-hmm.
Way worse. You see people walking around like zombies
Yeah, everybody's
in the
bent
streets there.
over, and it's happening all over, like in Abbotsford and other places where it wasn't happening. Go ahead, finish your
And
point. Like,
so of course she's out of touch. She has absolutely zero idea
well, the
what's
news
really
people are
going
not
on.
supposed to be out of touch. That's why she gets paid $1 million, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
She may now, like, because I had worked with these anchors for so long, I do see them as normal people. So she might, maybe she does go grocery shopping. I don't know. She's got a kid who's probably older now. She's been remarried. I think she married another rich guy. She's not hurting for money. So that $9 gallon of milk or $7 carton of eggs does not hurt her pocketbook as it does for people who make 20 something an hour. It's because then you
Right.
cannot buy the eggs. So, but
But why do they act the way they do? I mean, like
Yeah.
this whole superior thing, right? Like
Oh,
when
I'm really tired of that. That's why I like podcasts. Like that goes back to Barbara Walters acting holier than thou when she interviews people that maybe got in trouble for some sexual impropriety or something like that. Like she's never never made any mistakes or anything like that. I don't like this. I don't like this arrogance where they hold their pen and they're like, I'm asking the questions. No, I'm granting you an interview. So show me some respect. I think at least with podcasting that becomes more conversational and that wall goes down, that wall of judgment. But so I think that that's good, but we still need our reporters to hold people to account and not let them go. Right. So the media, I would just say that the media failed. They have been failing us, and they showed that they failed because the machine wanted Trump to lose. The machine wants certain people to lose, but it was too big, right? And so now people don't, you know what I mean? The media tide has completely turned. Everybody can see now.
Yeah, this is why I call them the left-wing corporate media, and in some cases, the Marxist corporate media. And I've had, I'm not sure if you're still friends with anybody who works at Global, your
They won't,
former
I think
place.
I'm persona non grata. They won't talk to me,
I've
including
been the
like
same.
people who are my close friends.
Have
No,
you
they
had
don't. They
have you
don't.
had a conversation with somebody or tried to have a conversation with somebody about this very thing, and they just don't want to talk about it? They'll turn around, they'll walk away.
Yeah.
They might call you a conspiracy theorist before
Yeah.
they do it, or they'll just change the subject altogether.
Yeah.
They do not want to talk about it.
They can't accept that they're a part of something so bad. You are, by you pushing something, you are a part of something so bad that you don't understand. And now that all this has come up now, they double down.
when we watch those clips, that one clip that you played from Donna Friesen, and then the one you're about to play, we see a lower key version of what's going on in the American media. I mean, Morning Joe this morning on MSNBC was absolutely hilarious. I mean, I thought it was an SNL thing.
They are hilarious. Yeah.
They're crazy, right? I mean, I can't believe he said this, he said that. Now they're taking things he said out of context in regards to the Liz Cheney thing and shoot her in the face and all that. He never said that, right? He said she's a war hawk. How would she like it? Basically, is what he meant. How would she like it if she was sitting there with 10 guns pointed in her face as she sends young men out to die in unnecessary wars? Right. That's the point he was making. But CNN, MSNBC, and all of these other woke networks were saying, well, Trump wants to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. Absolutely wrong. Right. But the bluster and the lying and the hyperbole that was going on in the American media was absolutely ridiculous, over the top, to the point, like I was saying, where I thought it was an SNL sketch. In Canada, they're much more subdued and low key about it. Right.
Yeah, we are more subdued, about it.
They're still lying.
But that's what makes it more insidious. I love this comment here. Well, no, last night was brutal. Just refused to call it until it was impossible to deny it any longer. Right? Too big to rig. Right? Too big to rig. But let's go and talk. Okay, since we're on to the CBC, I really hope when Pierre gets in, that he really will defund this thing. You know what? If they want their viewers, CBC, go and do whatever the hell we all have to do. Go get subscriptions.
I'm thinking, okay, if that's what he's planning to do, I don't think there's going to be any stopping him from doing it, regardless of what percentage of Canadians the CBC says
well, he
want
said
them
it
to
so
remain.
much. He's been saying it for over a year and a half now. I hope that he actually does it. I hope he doesn't come back and it's like, oh, sorry, well, we couldn't because of this rule or that rule. Change it up and defund them. And global news, CTV is actually horrible too, right? Vashi Capellos, everybody sort of
I want to ask you about Vashi Capellos.
Just one
go
sec.
ahead.
Yeah, Vashi Capellos, everybody kisses her ass because she takes people to task, but oh, she's so tough. Where was she during the time when we needed her? And she never called out her own. Like, I called out my own and I got in trouble for it, right? Come on, Vashi. You can go start a YouTube channel. Let's see how well you do. She never called out her own company when they did that bad edit on Pierre, right? Like, how come you didn't talk about that? Your own vice president was in a friggin' hearing and had to answer for it, and he didn't even talk to the people involved in it. Why didn't you call them out? You're so quick to call out everybody else. And the other day she did a horrible interview with Danielle Smith, because Danielle Smith is like, we don't want people to have these gender surgeries. You know, we're not really into this for minors. You have to be over 18. And Vashi just looked at her like, what are you, crazy? It was like actually a disgusting interview. So Vashi, I'm not impressed with you. I'm not impressed with you, Mrs. I'm so tough. You're so tough when it suits you. But give me a break. Anyway, I was not impressed with her. But let's look at CBC and this ridiculous woman. Actually, she's not a broadcaster. She's some sort of Democratic strategist. So I don't take what she says too seriously. But this is appalling what she says. Good luck with us if we say this. We get our channels pulled.
So let's talk about exactly the question that you're asking is one that I've been catching a lot of heat for answering on air. And we've been talking about this in the last week or two. You're talking about the propaganda campaign and the playbook of Trump. This is not new. This is not surprising. This is directly out of Hitler's playbook. This is out of an autocrat playbook. This is a way to, I mean, the things that Trump has done masterfully, frankly, is to get the entire, to get a big part of the population to believe that the game is rigged and to sow distrust in public institutions and the free press. And so it's actually quite simple. When you tell a big enough lie over and over and over, people are going to believe it. Even when folks around him like Rudy Giuliani and others have literally been found liable for telling those lies that weren't true, the public still believes it. And the whole goal was to erode trust in our public institutions, and it's working.
What a crazy.
What is she even talking about? What even is that?
Oh, she's just like, oh, they're lying because it's going to erode trust, and they're lying. And if you tell a lie long enough and big enough, then people are going to believe it. Hey, check yourself, woman. Check yourself.
That's what the liberals have been doing for the last
right.
9 years. I mean,